Do y'all think that the better team won, or was this just a bad game?
They got a cloud hanging over their head.
You execute when you're supposed to execute, and we didn't do that. They were the better team in that game.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a world where Georgia Tech has the best record in all of college football.
What?
That was my reaction. What? An exciting game this weekend. Not SEC, of course, but it was an exciting game. Today we have.
I loved it. I just, if I can jump in real quick.
Yeah.
Living in the state of Georgia and absolutely detesting the University of Georgia has created a very soft spot in my heart for Georgia Tech. So for Georgia Tech to go on the road and find a little luck of the Irish, warmed the cockles of me cold heart. So kudos to them. Plus, it's fun watching Florida State fans get all ticky about how the refs screwed them and how they should have all kinds of stuff. It's just college football is back, guys. We're good to go.
Oh yeah,
everything is right in the world.
We have a great interview lined up for you guys this show. We have a Oklahoma fan on the show here to talk about all things Oklahoma football, tradition, all the things. So we're looking forward to getting into that. But first, it is week 1 is officially here for all of our teams, and so let's go ahead and dive in to some picks.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
All right, so I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is that football's here, and we have like 16 games to watch this weekend. The bad news is there's about 4 of them that are, against, two teams that are quality opponents facing each other. So, but hey, it's all good. We're going to get started with the first game, and that is Arkansas Pine Bluff. The Golden Lions are going to face off against Arkansas. That is Thursday, August the 29th at 7:30 on ESPNU. So yeah, there's not really any line on this. I think Arkansas is, favored to win by a lot. I'm going to go with a kind of a gut pick here. I'm going to say Arkansas 52-10. Jesse, what's your pick?
I mean, you love to see a big juggernaut game on a Thursday. That's how you know you've made it, is when you get the Thursday night slot. So I think it's no question I'm going to pick the Razorbacks here, 32-6. But let me just say, despite the fact that the opponent is not a top tier one, apologies to all my Arkansas Pine Bluff Golden Lions, this is a game that they need to come out and actually set a tone. There can be no stumbles. There can be no slow starts. Sam Pittman is relying on all of you young gentlemen. Please do this for Sam. Please.
Yeah. Matt, what's your pick?
Yeah, I think if we stumble out of the gate with this one, the propane torch is going to come out for Pittman's seat. Yeah, I don't foresee Arkansas having any trouble here, at least in 4 quarters. We'll see what they look like coming out. Plus, we get Bobby Petrino back at OC, so maybe some offensive fireworks on a Thursday night. So I'm going to say Arkansas wins, but I'm going to say 42-10.
Okay. And the next game, and this is also on a Thursday night, Murray State Racers at Missouri. It's Thursday at 8:00 on the SEC Network. Yeah, I was looking at the schedule, and Murray State, they're struggling. I'm going to go Missouri here, 63-3. Jesse, what do you got?
I'm going to pick the Tigers here as well, 49-9.
Matt. Again, as much as it pains me, and I'm hoping that Drinky lays an absolute egg on Thursday night, but I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pick Missouri here, 45-10.
All right. So we're getting revved up with the next game here, just a little bit, not quite, but a game that actually has a line listed, and that is Temple at Oklahoma. That's Friday, August the 30th at 7 on ESPN. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit closer, maybe a little bit more competition, but ultimately Oklahoma going to dominate here. Oklahoma 55-10 is what I've got. Jesse?
I'm really sad that this one is not at Temple, because I live like 10 minutes off of Temple's campus. I mean, they don't play on campus because it's a city school, but I do wish it was here because then I would have gone. But I'm going to pick the Sooners here. Wow, that's the first time I've had to say that on the pod. So it's a little weird, but I'm going to pick the Sooners here 49-10.
It is fun getting into these new schools and making picks for the first time. Matt, what you got?
Man, it's just Oklahoma's in the SEC now. What am I supposed to do with this information? That being said, I don't think Temple's been good at football since like the 80s, right? Like Temple's always been kind of suspect. So I don't foresee this being an issue. In fact, I was going to give Temple 2 touchdowns here. I'm taking one of them away and settling for a field goal. So I'm going to say 52-10 is the final in Norman this weekend.
All right, well, let's move to one of the premier matchups of the weekend. That's Clemson versus Georgia, Saturday, August the 31st at noon on ABC from Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. So I was looking at Clemson. Cade Klubnik is, there, and they're looking for big things from him. Also, Clemson has Antonio Williams and Cole Turner back this year at wide receiver. They've struggled with injury. Those two and Tyler Brown are going to look to test Georgia's secondary, I think. But I think Georgia's kind of able to take a close game at half and pull away a little bit in the second half, thanks to slightly more depth. So I'm going to go Georgia here, 35-17. Jesse?
Yeah, we're not dealing with the Clemson of old. We're not dealing with the Deshaun Watson Clemson nor the Trevor Lawrence Clemson. So I think when they first half, we might feel like it's a little closer than it actually is, but UGA is going to pull away with this one. So I'm going to pick the Bulldogs 35-13.
All right, Matt.
Listen. I can't even come up with a joke about it. Georgia's going to absolutely ream them out. But I am taking the over on the number of times that they get pictures or video of Cade Klubnik's mom and dad. Because when Tennessee played them in the Orange Bowl a couple of years, I literally saw them at least 16 times. So I'm going to say the over's 9.5. 9.5 is the number I'm taking. By the way, UGA.
What is a half?
It's not important. UGA is going to win this game 30-14, and I think that last touchdown is going to be a garbage time touchdown for Clemson.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's move to the next one, which for some strange reason, I'm just oddly intrigued by this matchup. Virginia Tech at Vanderbilt. It's Virginia Tech. I know this is not Virginia Tech of the mid 2000s. I know Vanderbilt's not great, but I mean, it's Virginia Tech at Vanderbilt. We don't see that a whole lot. Noon on ESPN. I am intrigued by this, but I think Vanderbilt's going to put up a little bit of a fight, but ultimately Virginia Tech pulls away here. I'm going 31-17 Virginia Tech. Jesse, what do you got?
I think Virginia Tech fans are going to travel very well for this game, not in the stadium, but to the actual city. I don't think they make it into the stadium, but I believe they will have some nice celebration after the game. So I'm going to pick Virginia Tech 35-6. I'm sorry, Vandy. I wish you could start with a win. I really do.
They could visit the Arboretum. Matt, what do you
You and that damn Arboretum, Wes.
I said that just for you. Just for you.
Anyway, Vanderbilt. Listen, I don't want to say y'all need to find a new conference, but y'all need to find a new conference. Y'all would be a better fit to the SEC, TBH.
This would be like Premier League, like soccer relegated stuff, where they move up.
Yeah, let's get rid of Vanderbilt and bring in like Georgia Southern or something like that. That would be fun. Let's do that. But that being said, Virginia Tech's going to roll with this one. I see 38-3 on this one.
All right.
Sorry, Vandy.
Yeah, let's move to the Chattanooga Mocs at Tennessee. 12:45 on SEC Network. I did have to throw in here, Scrappy Mock is a costumed northern mockingbird. He is their mascot. So that's fun. I'm going here, UT. Well, I should be clear here that that's the University of Tennessee now.
Yes, you got to clarify that now, Wes.
Clarify now. So University of Tennessee, 56-7. They're not going to play around. Jesse, what do you got?
As much as I love a mockingbird, I am going to have to pick the Vols in this one. So I think they're going to take this one easily, 52-10.
Matt?
I think this is going to be a very special year for Tennessee. I have the sneaking gut feeling that we're going to find a way to. We won't win the SEC. I think I've already given up on that. but I think we're going to find a way to sneak into the playoff, and I think we're going to surprise some people. And I think it's going to start with this game. I really do believe that's what's going to happen. That being said, I don't foresee this being much of a game. I think this is a Squirrel White Brew McCoy coming out party. I think they're going to light up the field. The scoreboard is going to be crazy. Nico's going to have a fantastic stat line. I'm going to say Vols win by 56 in this game. Vols 66, Moccasins 10.
Okay.
Walking birds.
Whatever.
Mocks.
Did I say moccasins?
Yeah.
I did.
It's a
'Cause I always-
logical misunderstanding.
It makes that's a much better mascot than a bird.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right, let's move to Colorado State at Texas. It's 3:30 on ESPN. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel this way, the same as I've felt kind of maybe about Oklahoma Temple. I mean, Colorado State might put up a little bit of a fight at the beginning, but Texas ultimately rolls here. I'm going Texas 45-14. Jesse, what do you got?
Those poor Colorado babies. It's gonna be so hot. It's gonna be so hot. That is just cruel. Drink water, young men. Drink so much water, okay?
Stay hydrated.
Hydration's
Stay out
important.
there.
Yep.
It's this and sunscreen. I know that you have pads on, but just get that neck, Texas is going to get their first win as a member of the SEC. This one's not even going to be fun. 48-12.
All right, Matt.
I was gonna pick Texas big, and then I remembered that Texas is playing this game without RB1 and RB2.
Okay. Already figuring that in there.
And I think that's a big story this at the beginning of the season. It's going to be interesting to see what it looks like without, they're going to the third guy in the running on the depth chart. Could that be an issue going forward? I don't think it'll be too much of a problem in this game. I think Quinn Ewers is going to be just fine. I'm going to pick Texas 38-14, but you need to watch out. Now, I don't know if Texas is going to be as good as everybody's saying they are.
Quinn Ewers will be just fine or okay? It's a little,
I think he'll
foreshadowing there.
I think he'll be a little bit better than average.
Okay. All right. So moving to maybe not necessarily a premier matchup, although maybe in comparison to the other ones it is, but certainly an intriguing matchup. Miami at Florida, 3:30 on ABC. Yeah, I mean, I think both of these teams have question marks, more so for Florida, though. I know there's a lot of hype for Miami this year. They're expecting to do good things. So I'm going to go with Miami here. Florida's just got too much going on. I'm going Miami 31-21. Jesse?
I hate for Florida to lose their season opener in the swamp to another Florida team, but I do think that's going to happen. I think the Hurricanes are going to come in and wash away those Gators. So I'm picking Miami 27-14.
All right. Matt, what you got?
Had to get my pen. Not so fast, my friend. I'm actually going to break from the pack on this one. I think because this is a home game, if it was a night game, I'd be even a little bit more confident in this pick. But the fact it's a 3:30 game, we'll see. I think that Miami's going to struggle a little bit, and I think Florida's going to find a way to pull this thing out. I don't know why. It's just a gut feeling. The Swamp is a hard environment to win in. This is going to be a big game for both of these programs. I mean, this is a historic rivalry that I think they're going to be ready for. Yes, Florida is going to have its own slew of issues to kind of work its way through, but I think they find a way to get this one done. I'm say Florida 28-24.
Okay, well, that would be quite interesting. All right, let's move to the Old Dominion Monarchs at South Carolina, 4:15 on the SEC Network. I would also like to add that an anthropomorphic lion is the mascot of the Old Dominion Monarchs, so that's always fun. What? Okay, so
I'm just like, okay, Monarchs. I guess they're going like Game of Thrones, Lannister lions on a throne. I don't know. Okay.
Like King of the Jungle type of thing.
I think there's some connection from Old Dominion, and it's an old school, and I think that they like a king of something probably wrote the
Ooh, that could be. I'm sure there's
because it's an old school in Virginia, so there's got to be. I'll find out. Go ahead, Wes.
Go for it. With history lesson with Matt. So yeah, I mean, South Carolina, obviously, they've got a few issues to address, namely replacing Spencer Rattler, but they've got enough weapons there. I think they'll get it done. South Carolina wins this one 35-14. Jesse?
I think South Carolina gets this done, but like we talked about a couple weeks ago, I think this is going to be a really big season for the future of South Carolina and the future of Shane Beamer at South Carolina. So this is one, I know it's the start of the season. This one should be pretty easy, but gentlemen, you got to go out there and you got to do work and you got to get it done. And you really can't falter because that will be the narrative that plagues you the rest of the season. So I'm going to pick the Gamecocks, but again, just be careful. 28-10.
Matt, do you have a history update for us?
Okay, I figured it out. Apparently, at one point, Old Dominion, which was established in 1930, was a part of the College of William and Mary. William and Mary were king and queen of England back in the 17th century. So that's where the monarch thing comes from.
Gotcha.
Anyhow, back to this game. Carolina. Where do I start with Carolina? I don't think this is going to be much of a game. I think Carolina's going to probably pop out early and stay ahead because, again, it's Old Dominion. Question mark? I don't even know what conference they're in. So I'm going to treat them with nothing but disdain and vitriol, and I'm going to pick the Gamecocks in this one 35-13. And we'll see how things go forward for Beamer.
All right. Well, going from a Old Dominion monarch school to a directional school in Eastern Kentucky, the Colonels at Mississippi State. That's 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus. I think Jeff Lebby gets a good first game as head coach at Mississippi State, and they win 31-10 over the Eastern Kentucky Colonels. Jesse, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Bulldogs in this one as well. I think this is going to be a nice win for our new head coach here. So I'm picking them 35-10.
Matt?
I can't get like Eastern Kentucky out of my head without thinking like Foghorn Leghorn. Like I say, boy, I say, like that kind of thing. So I really don't think they're going to be able to hang in this game. They will be deep fried chicken by the time this thing's over with. So I'm going to go ahead and pick State. However, garbage time touchdowns are going to come into play. It'll be 28-14, and State will give up a late touchdown to make it that close.
Okay. All right. From one end of the state to the other, Western Kentucky at Alabama, 7 p.m. on ESPN. Kalen DeBoer, first game as head coach, but Bama's too talented. They're not going to struggle. This is not even going to be a thing. Bama wins this one 45-14. Jesse, what do you got?
This is the start of something new. It's going to be so weird, y'all. It's going to be so weird. But I agree. We have got a nice opener, a little cushy opener to ease us all into this new era. So the Tide's going to take this one 38-9.
All right, Matt.
Fun little story about Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky is known as the Hilltoppers.
They are indeed.
Which I've never understood what that is. Fun fact about Western Kentucky as
hill.
well is that John Carpenter of horror movie fame is an alum of Western Kentucky. I just found that out because Google is really the full extent of the internet. That being said, Western Kentucky's not going to be able to stay on any kind of hills here. They're going to get pushed around like grandma's china cabinet. It's going to get ugly, and it's going to get ugly early. And I would foresee that Western Kentucky will not even score a single touchdown in this game. I think they're going to have to settle for nothing but field goals. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Bama here big, 48-12.
Fun fact about Western Kentucky, they also had a quarterback starting in the NFL last year at the Patriots in Baylor.
All right. Very nice. All right. Next is the Furman Paladins at Ole Miss. This is 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus.
What's a paladin?
Such a great mascot. It's like a knight.
Yeah.
Unless it's a D&D thing, and then it's like a holy knight. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wasn't also getting a lot of nerd.
Anyway,
there's a lot of nerd going on tonight. Let's continue, Wes.
You know that Ole Miss likes to make a statement, and Lane Kiffin likes to put a ton of points on the board just to try to make a case. So I'm going to go Ole Miss 70-3 because I think they're just going to be foot on the gas the entire time.
Wes.
They've done it before. We've seen them put up huge numbers, especially on week one against kind of cushy opponents. Jesse, what do you got?
I mean, I think Ole Miss is going to take it big time, but I don't think it's going to be that big time. I'm going to pick Ole Miss 48-6.
All right. Matt, what you got?
I had a guy I went to high school with who played quarterback for Furman way back in the early aughts. I would like to say that, Josh, they're going to find a way to win. They're not going to find a way to win. I think Ole Miss's offense is going to be way too prolific. Again, I like Ole Miss here, 57-14.
All right, and then sort of the evening matchup that I'm most intrigued about: Notre Dame at Texas A&M. This is 7:30 on ABC. These are two teams, again, two teams that are premier programs in the country, but still a lot of questions. I think the difference here is going to be Connor Wigman is the story, and he's back. He's poised for a good season for A&M. I think he's the difference in this game. I'm going A&M 24-21. Jesse, what do you got?
No one.
No one.
Just kidding. I wish that was an option. I have gone back and forth on this one, but just because it's a night game in Kyle Field, it's making me lean a little bit more towards Texas A&M. So I'm going to pick them in a really, really close one. Texas A&M squeaks this one out with just minutes left, 21-20.
Matt?
It's a good pick. I like that pick. However, I'm gonna get a break from the herd here. I think Notre Dame's gonna find a way to get this done. I think the media is going to harp on the fact that Notre Dame went into the SEC's backyard and came out with a W. I think this is going to further catapult the Notre Dame love fest that is every season. But I do think Notre Dame's going to find a way to make this thing happen. Try not to get that puke out of your mouth there, Jesse. You'll be okay. I think Notre Dame's going to find a way to win this game. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think it may end on a fluke. Maybe like a botched punt return or some sort of silly shenanigans or something. Maybe a kick six. I'm just
honestly, I would love for it to happen to someone else so they stop playing that damn clip.
Well, I don't foresee that happen. Something silly is going to happen here, and I think Notre Dame's going to find a way to beat them at Kyle Field at night, which is a very tall order, but we'll see.
I actually like
30-27.
Yeah, I actually like that pick. I almost went with Notre Dame, but at the last minute I decided not to. So, all right. Next is Alabama A&M and Auburn, 7:30 on ESPN Plus. This is going to be another one of those lopsided ones, as it should be. Auburn 48-7 is what I've got. Jesse, what do you got?
How exciting for everyone's families! They all can
right.
road trips. We love a good short road trip. Alabama A&M and Auburn, just short road trips, fun for the whole fam. The Tigers are going to take this one pretty easily, 31-9.
All right, Matt.
Yeah, I think Auburn's not going to have any issues here. Hugh Freeze, I think, is going to be able to find a way to get the offense up and rolling. They had some struggles last year. I think they may be a little bit more improved this year. I like Auburn 38-10.
All right, and then we have Southern Miss at Kentucky, 7:45 on the SEC Network. Again, just sort of another lesser opponent for week one. I'm going with Kentucky here, 38-10. Jesse?
I agree with you. I'm picking the Cats, 35-10.
All right, Matt?
Night game at Kroger Field against Brett Favre's old team. Yeah, go ahead and give me Kentucky 38-14.
All right, and then the final matchup is actually going to be on Sunday, September the 1st at 7:30 on ABC. This is USC versus LSU from Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. So, interesting matchup here. I don't know what to expect. No idea, really, if I'm being perfectly honest with everybody. But I got a good feeling about Garrett Nussmeier. I've seen him in some key situations. He's looked good, and I think he's poised for a good year. And Lincoln Riley. Well, we'll talk more about him later. So yeah, I'm going with LSU here, 34-31. Jesse, what do you got?
Imagine how insane this would have been last year with both those quarterbacks still at the schools.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
This is a tale of two programs that have lost their stud quarterbacks, though. So it's going to be interesting for a different reason and an opportunity for guys to step up and see if they can fill those big shoes. I am going to pick the Tigers in this one, though. I feel like LSU is a little more scrappy, and I feel like they might have the next man up that can actually not fill Jaden shoes, but we'll see. He can get close. He did have to play some last year. So I'm going to pick the Tigers in a close one, 35-28.
All right, Matt, what do you got?
Listen, I really don't like either one of these
You
teams.
gonna break from the pack again?
I'm not. I'm gonna stick with the crew on this one. I was looking to see how many times these two particular teams have played each other. They have played 2 times, and the series is currently tied 1-1. The last time these two met was the best year in the history of human history. It was 1984, which also happened to be the year I was born. And that game was the last time these two met. So it has been a hot minute since these two teams have played. In fact, the last time these two teams played, LSU won 23-3. However, I don't think it's going to be that far apart on the ends of the spectrum for this one. I think LSU is going to find a way to squeak this one out late. I like 28-24 Tigers.
Gentlemen, stay in your rooms. I know it's Sunday. I know you have a whole weekend in Vegas. Behave yourselves. Okay. Just behave yourselves.
Let them live. Let them live, Jesse.
Oh,
they're young men.
Those poor player developers busy.
oh my God.
No. No.
Oh man.
Coach, where are we going to go for our first game? We're going to Vegas, kids. Oh, God.
Just stay in the hotel. Do not gamble your tuition. Just.
I don't think the gambling is what you're going to have to worry about.
I know.
Other things.
It's very true. Very true. All right. Well, that does it for all the upcoming games this upcoming weekend. Before we get into the interview, is there anything else that you guys would like to discuss? Anything news-wise that came up, or anything or should we just dive right into it?
I would like to go on record as saying the Jackets are my dark horse pick to win the Natty this year.
Jackets. Okay. Well, I mean, nobody can argue with you right now.
I'm joking. I'm totally kidding. Come on now. They beat Florida State, who got boat raced by Georgia. It's not a thing. I was kidding.
I hear you. Well, let's go ahead and get into our interview with our Oklahoma fandom representative. Well, what's up, everybody? Last week, we were honored to be joined by a Texas fan, one of the two
wait,
teams.
Wes.
Well,
we got Noki with us. Calm down. You don't need to bring up Texas. It's way too early in the interview for all that.
Well, did you guys squash it there? Is it TU or UT?
We're not gonna open up that can again. If that's okay with you, Brady.
Sorry,
Wes. Go ahead.
No, where I'm from, TU is Tulsa, so it's I mean, we're all confused here.
There you go. So yes, one of the two teams is joining the SEC last week, and we are honored to be joined by a representative from the fandom of Oklahoma this week. Brady, welcome to the show. We're excited to talk to you.
Hey guys, thank you. I appreciate it. And by the grace of the YouTube algorithm gods, I found your guys' podcast 2 weeks ago or so. And you guys do a great job. I'm very excited to be a part of a conference and I don't want to like crap on the Big 12 because we
do it all the time.
But it's nice in addition to a lot of other fun factors of joining the SEC, being an OU fan, it's really fun to join a conference where people create stuff to consume, like whether to be to read, to watch, to listen. This is fun. It's just fun to be next to a bunch of other programs that care as much about football as we do. So it's fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well,
should we all do an SEC chant? We can go ahead and do that if we want. SEC. I'm sorry.
The only time I've ever done an SEC chant is when I went to the Sugar Bowl against Alabama in 2013.
I like this guy already. Bring him on every week.
So look, I was in college and had the opportunity to go at the last second, and I thought, yeah, I'll go down to New Orleans for fun and watch OU get their ass kicked because I was in an intercession course in winter that December, and our professor had given us like the Monday and Tuesday off, assuming some of us were going to go to the game. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll go down, have a good time, and watch OU get their ass crushed. And oh boy, was I wrong! But that's just a BCS bowl. No one cares.
Right.
We hate the Sugar Bowl with a passion. It's the one bowl and they're like,
well,
do you want to go to the Sugar Bowl? No, I don't want to go to the Sugar Bowl. It seems like the worst place I could possibly be.
No, that was our thing with the Fiesta Bowl for a while. I think we lost 2 or 3 in a row until we finally won one against UConn. So it could be worse.
There you go. Well, Brady, let's get started with the basics. So first off, how did you become an Oklahoma fan?
Well, by virtue of, I was born in Oklahoma, but my dad was in the Air Force. So my whole family's from Oklahoma. So I just happened to be born here because in 1990, we were, our military was fighting abroad against Iraq. So my dad was in Saudi Arabia. So my mom had me here in Enid, Oklahoma, which I have no connection to other than being born there.
I applied
Uh,
for a job in Enid, Oklahoma, at the
oh,
very beginning
really?
of my at the beginning of my career. They called me, but I'd already taken another job.
Well,
Hmm.
I'm assuming like you got a different job and had some success in that
Yeah.
job. I'm just gonna say you should be happy you didn't end up in Enid, Oklahoma. So
I figured.
yeah, I'm sure it's a lovely town. I other than being born there, I think I drove through once on the way back from Red River, New Mexico, and I stopped at a Freddy's to get a burger after a 9-hour drive. And I'm sitting at the Freddy's and I look outside and I see Bass Memorial Hospital and I go, huh, that's where I was born. Oh, well. And then I moved on. So, yeah, whole family's from Oklahoma. And so my dad was an OU fan. And he cursed me with the fandom because now every Saturday in the fall, I'm angry, even if OU wins. Like
Oh,
he could have been an Alabama fan. That could have been
yeah.
cool. He could have been an Ohio State fan, but no, it's fun. Being an OU fan is both a curse and a blessing at the
Well,
same time. So that's my little OU fan origin story. It was always fun being an Air Force brat because we were stationed in a bunch of places, and being in the military, being a military brat, you're always surrounded by people from all over the map. And I was always, whenever I would meet people and say, yeah, my name's Brady Trantham, I'm from Oklahoma, they would just say, hey, do you like the Sooners? Like that was always like the easy thing because this was before the Oklahoma City Thunder were a thing. So it was always
mm,
OU football was the connection. So it was kind of forced upon me even before I really wanted to get into being an OU fan. But the coolest thing was probably we were stationed in Abilene, Texas, during the largest portion of the 5-game winning streak against Texas in the early 2000s. So that was fun.
yeah. Well, if you're born and raised to be an Oklahoma fan, if you're also angry every Saturday, it sounds like you were born and raised to be an SEC fan too, because that's pretty much how
Yeah.
we
That's
are. So,
we all operate that way.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what I meant. I don't think we were recording, but it's nice to be a part of a conference where everybody has the same energy level as you.
Right.
All due respect to, Iowa State's had a nice little program run for the last 5 or 6 years. Baylor is up and down, but they've been completely different than what they were when the Big 12 was formed in the mid 90s. Oklahoma State, Kansas State are solid top 25 programs year in and year out. But for the most part, these programs as fan bases only care when OU shows up. Then they suddenly care. And if they happen to beat OU, then they're like a
Oh yeah.
passionate fan base that gives a damn. If if the status quo happens and OU just wins by 40 points, it's like, oh yeah, but basketball season's coming up and we got you there.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, so we love tradition, we love the pageantry of everything. And so our question to you is what are some Oklahoma traditions that we should be aware of? I mean, obviously there's, some things that we inherently know about just from being around the sport, but what are some that we should be aware of? Maybe well known that you want to kind of rehash, or what maybe there's some that are a little more obscure that we're not aware of.
Yeah, like when it comes to traditions at OU, because I feel like people, when you bring up like what are some traditions that go on during OU games before, during, or after, I think people have this idea of like Texas A&M is the poster child for this. They have choreographed chants and cheers, and they've got stuff before the game. They've got
Matt's
stuff.
Oh,
triggered.
bro. A&M's a cult. I don't care what anyone says. A&M's a cult.
I didn't say it was a good thing. I'm just saying that like they have all the
I love it.
cheers. They've got them all down. I mean, even Oklahoma State, whenever they score a touchdown, they do like the waving wheat thing. OU doesn't really have anything other than for the last 70 to 80 years, we've been one of the best programs in college football. We are college football, and we've been in a conference where we just kick your ass and then we go home. So that's our tradition. So it sounds very boring. So we've got the schooner, like everybody knows the Sooner schooner. Boomer Sooner is it's probably the most played fight song in college football history, not just because OU is typically good, but because even if we're down 20 points, you will hear Boomer Sooner be played if we move the ball forward. And then, like other than that, there's just not a lot of tradition. I mean, there are some things that start because the fans make things happen and it's silly. And I have always assumed every fan base does this, but whenever the opposing team scores in the north end zone, because the south end zone has the big scoreboard, like at the very top. So the north end zone, there's nothing up there except for, just the brick wall and then, certain death if you were to like look over and bend over too far. So whenever an opposing team scores and kicks their extra point with their football, with their logo on it, the fans just throw the ball up while the boys are on the field saying, please come back. Please give us the ball back. Please don't be assholes. And then the fans throw the ball over the brick wall and then everybody cheers. So like,
all right.
Yeah, it's a program that they expect to win. They've been, whether it be the Big Eight, even back in those days where you had Nebraska, who was a blue blood top 5 program every single year. You played Texas every year as a non-conference opponent, and they're always like a top 25 program year in and year out. But for the most part, you're playing Oklahoma State, you're playing Iowa State, you're playing Kansas State, all these programs that just aren't at the level. And so you just kind of find yourself showing up for game day, vastly outnumbering any opposing fan base, because you don't play Texas and Norman every other year. You play them in Dallas. And so it kind of builds this tradition of, yeah, we're just here to have fun and watch our team win by a large margin. And so, even when that doesn't happen, but OU wins, people are still upset. So OU's in for a culture shock in a lot of different ways coming into the SEC, because like I said, every fan base cares. I mean, Kentucky, I'm sure, will bring as many fans as Texas Tech.
There's going to be a lot of Kentucky fans coming.
Yeah. I'm like,
there's going to be a lot of Tennessee fans when Tennessee comes too. You better what? That's going to be a lot of people. That's the thing
about the SEC is I think like
they travel well.
School travels well, right? Like every school is going to go where they're at. We are psychopaths. We all have bought in. We've drank the Kool-Aid. We all have the same psychopathy. Right. And we're so about the pageantry and the pride. And I think, and we've talked about it before on the show, where yes, NFL teams have their own thing, right? Like absolutely those fandoms are legit, they're real, but there's something special about college, because if you went there, you do feel a part of it. You may not have ever stepped on the field.
You can say us.
Yeah, but
don't start that argument again.
No, but you bought into it, and if you have a family member that's bought into it, you've been on the field maybe for a game, or you've known someone that's played there. There's just this sense of belonging in college to your team that is a little different than in the NFL. Yeah. And I think it's so special. Yes, it makes us emotionally unstable. Yes, but it is so special. And I think in the SEC, and you guys will find, we travel really well.
To your point about Kentucky, I believe when Kroger Field is full, I've heard that it's the equivalent. If it was a city, it would be the 3rd largest city in Kentucky. So,
yeah. I mean, that's something. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I speak for the entire fan base, but that's something that I've looked forward to, because like I mentioned, you don't play Texas in the home and home situation. You play them at a neutral site every year. So the only other program that is in any way, shape, or form like close to you in terms of historical prestige, present prestige, fan base size, you don't get a chance to like host the legion of fans that would come to your town. Obviously, when OU and OSU play, there are a lot of OSU fans, because a lot of OSU fans live in Oklahoma City or they live in Norman. It's a small state; it's easy to get around. And then if Kansas State's good, they'll travel. Iowa State is a very sneaky, weird, good travel school, because even for the most part, they've been bad most of my fandom, but they would still bring by far more fans than a Texas Tech or a Baylor would, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. But, it's probably a lot of similar, there's maybe some similar culture to that of the SEC, where Iowa State is like, yeah, like we're not that, we may not be good, but this is what we have in Iowa, and this is what we love, and this is how we connect to the rest of the country. And so they just jump on the bandwagon. But no, that's going to be fun. Like OU's got South Carolina coming to town after the Texas game this year. And I've just kind of made the bold projection, I guess, of just saying things like South Carolina is going to bring more fans than half the Big 12 would consistently bring to Norman, because one, it's the first time they've ever played each other. It could be a fun little, it could be just a fun little experience for South Carolina fans, I guess, like, let's go to Oklahoma. But it's one of those things where OU is whether they be good in 2024 or not, they're still a bastion of the sport. And if I was a South Carolina fan, I would look at that potential game and say, yeah, I'd love to go and watch a game in that stadium.
Yeah. So for those South Carolina fans who do make the trip, what would be your advice? What are some key go-to spots on game day that you got to go to?
Yeah, so that really depends on not necessarily your age, because I'm 33. People my age and even older still act like they're in college. And if that be the case, if you still think that you're in college or you are in college, then go to Campus Corner. It's just north of the stadium. Campus Corner is our little bar restaurant community for campus. It's just right off North Campus. So there's Lindsay Street and Jenkins is where the stadium is. And if you just go north on Jenkins across the stadium, you'll come across Boyd Street, and that's where Campus Corner is. So there's all kinds of bars. Like there are a few dance bars. There are a few like sit down bars. There are a few like, clearly this is like everybody's just standing around with loud DJ music being played and everyone's drinking Red Bull vodka. It's like there's that environment. And there's restaurants and stuff. Some shops here and there that sell a lot of overpriced clothes, but I mean, that's the easiest thing to kind of get to on game day. There are going to be a lot of tailgates, and I know every fan base that has ever interacted with other fan bases, everybody has a horror story about this fan base or that fan base. Like personally, Oregon has the meanest fans I have ever been around. They were awful. Plus they cheated to beat us. But everyone has those stories, and I'm sure Alabama's played OU a handful of times in the 2000s, LSU, handful of SEC schools. Tennessee has over the last, decade, Georgia as well. I'm sure there might be some horror stories about OU fans, but I can guarantee you everybody's excited to host, like I said, fan bases that give a damn. So if you don't want to go spend a lot of money on Campus Corner, like walking distance around, game day, just find a tailgate and people are just going to hand you beer. They'll hand you drinks. They'll hand you food. So I mean, SEC fans will be treated, I think, very, very warmly. And really, like the handful of times OU has a big non-conference game, which is pretty consistent, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Florida State, they've hosted all these programs in the last 10 years. When they travel to Norman, yeah, for the most part, they may not be very happy with the result, but they enjoyed their time in Norman from what I could tell.
Gotcha. Well, that's cool. So for the listeners who don't know, Brady is through the Keyhole podcast, an Oklahoma football podcast. So how did you come to work with them? Do you have like a particular aspect like a niche aspect that you specialize in for the show, or what's the dynamic there? How's that work?
Yeah. So my old job, prior to 2021, I worked for the radio station in Oklahoma City, 107.7 The Franchise, and I was their Thunder reporter. So I'd go to games and practice and go interview Russell Westbrook, and I covered the team. And
sorry,
sometimes it was fun, sometimes it wasn't.
There's a story there, Jesse, I want to hear later.
I live with a Mavericks fan, and I have bought into the Mavericks real hard. And after this past season, I've got some beef with Russell Westbrook, but that's fine. It's fine.
I think everybody's got beef with Russell Westbrook. So
I think he has beef with himself. If the way he carries himself is any indication.
We're all just playing for second place with Russ. But yeah, so in addition to doing Thunder stuff and jumping on the radio and talk like, here's the Thunder report, they wanted me to try to think of ways to extend the reach of the radio station, because it's the 2020s, radio is going down, and like, how do we do something? So I just came up with the idea of having a podcast network for all the personalities. And, we're the flagship station for Oklahoma Sooner athletics. So all your football games that you listen to for OU are on our station. So I thought, well, we need to have an OU football podcast. I never wanted to cover OU because I'm a fan. And I would
Hard to be
feel awkward.
objective.
Because at the time, Mike Stoops was the defensive coordinator, and it would have been very awkward to just go on a podcast losing my mind of like, why is this human employed still? Why? And then go up to him with like a camera and like try to be like legitimate professional. Like it just wouldn't make a lot of sense. So they let me kind of start a podcast for the network, and it was called Inside OU at the time, and I ran it with John Hoover, who's covered OU football for 30 years. Like he's well known, and former linebacker for OU, Rufus Alexander, who now works for the athletic department, I think within Brent's Soul Mission program, which is like it's like a program that's designed to like show athletes like other opportunities outside of athletics and to prepare them for life if in the event that they don't make the NFL. So it's a cool little program that's been helpful to them. But we did that podcast for a few years. Then COVID hit, and then the station cut all of our pay, and then there were no sports. And so I just kind of like, I want to do something different with it. So I changed the name to Through the Keyhole. Through the Keyhole is a reference to Joe Washington. He was a running back in the mid 70s, played with Barry Switzer's Wishbone teams. Darrell Royal, the Texas coach at the time, was asked about like, what's it like defending Joe Washington? And he said he's like smoke through a keyhole. So I like that line, and it's cool because most people my age don't know what it means. And I'm like, oh, cool. It means more to me. So I wanted basically a place to be an OU fan. And ever since then, we've had the podcast, whether it be like for free. We've got a Patreon page that has a nice little community by itself. We just launched our free website a few months ago. I like to write. I like to create content. I like to podcast about OU football. It's a passion of mine, and I've got an awesome team with Peyton Guthrie, Alan Kinney, and Matt Burton. That do fantastic jobs in their own rights. And we've been able to build a podcast that I'm proud of because, there are a handful of podcasts out there. And for me, it's like, what do you offer that's different? And there are the journalistic OU podcasts, like the guys that cover the team on a day-to-day basis. And that's like, I respect that. I was in that zone for a little bit, but not with OU, but I respect that. We're fans, and we just try to promote like an environment for other like prospective listeners of, hey, I know you're mad that we lost to Kansas, so listen to us scream and lose our minds about Jeff Lebby, and join in on the fun, and you won't feel as bad. So that's that's basically the environment that we've tried, at least I've tried to build, and Peyton and Alan, like they add like an intelligence level to it that kind of goes beyond me with how they view the sport of college football as a whole. So we've got a little bit of everything, and I like it.
Well, speaking of yelling and screaming, we need your unfiltered thoughts on Texas from an Oklahoma fan's perspective.
Wait, to clarify, not too unfiltered. My mom does listen to this podcast.
Noted. Well, so like Texas historically and Texas in 2024. Texas historically, it never fails because, during the offseason, you're kind of like, you kind of look at the offseason like as podcasters, as content creators, and go, boy, what are we going to talk about in June? What's going to happen? Like, hopefully no players get arrested because, then we'd have something to talk about, but no one wants to say anything about that.
Right.
But usually what happens is weird, silly things come out from respected media members who also, like me, have access to this thing called Google, where you can just go Texas football history, where you just go through the years and go 8-4, 8-4, 6-5. Oh, they're not as good as I thought they should be. How does OU have all these? How does OU have more wins and more national titles and more everything than them? How? They have all the money. That's what they're the cool brand, right? I thought that mattered. Well, it doesn't. Texas historically is bad. I mean, they're not Texas A&M bad, but they are not as good as you would assume. Especially when you consider that for the vast majority of their history, when they were in the Southwest Conference, they rarely, if ever, in the years where they didn't play Arkansas in Fayetteville, they rarely left the state of Texas. Their big bowl game was the Cotton Bowl, played in Dallas. Their big rivalry game was with Oklahoma, played in Dallas. Then they played all the regional city schools in the state of Texas. And then, yeah, like I said, maybe every once in a while they play Arkansas. So they had all this built-in advantage. And yet Oklahoma has lapped them not once, not twice, but thrice in terms of wins, national titles, Heisman's, All-Americans, first-round draft picks, NFL picks, anything. You can, like, whatever metric you think is important, OU's lapped them. So historically, Texas, I'm sorry, just not as good as you should be. And Texas fans, if you put a gun to their head, they would probably agree with that.
Brady's definitely coming out firing. I love it.
See, it's like
so much.
Yeah, it's fun to talk about. Texas in 2024. I get people like Steve Sarkisian because he went through the coaching rehab with Nick Saban. So there's a track record. There's a track record there, I guess. To me, Sarkisian's always been like Diet Coke Lincoln Riley to me. He recruits exactly like Lincoln Riley. He coaches games exactly like Lincoln Riley, where, and the OU game last year was a perfect example where Texas started to find like, okay, we have a little bit more talent than they do. We're starting to kind of pull back on the rhythm of this game and take advantage of it. And then he just does a bunch of silly things for no reason. Like, hey, do the thing that works. And he's like, no, watch this. I'm gonna throw a slant route on the goal line to my 5'9" receiver who weighs 100 pounds. Like, this will work. Trust me. And it doesn't. And then you find yourself in a tight ball game. And then are you going to bank on Lincoln Riley or Steve Sarkisian in a tight ball game? Like, I wouldn't. I know people like him. I know people put a lot of stock in a returning quarterback. And, as an OU fan with a somewhat of an unknown with Jackson Arnold walking into the 2024 season, even though he's extremely talented and highly thought of, it would be nice to have experience walking into the SEC for year one. But Quinn Ewers he's okay. He's okay if the guy's wide open. Like he's fine. He can make the throws, but he doesn't scare me as an
Brady,
OU fan.
I love it. I love the audacity to come on a podcast. It just be like, Quinn Ewers is okay. Texas sucks.
Bama fan
I love it. I love it
right now.
I love it.
I mean, I've had to hear how bad OU's defense was for the last decade. I had to hear how, I know OU's defense looks better this year, guys, talking about last year, but, actually like the advanced metrics say otherwise. And it's like, okay, all that's cute, but at no point did Quinn Ewers frighten me last year. He threw a pick on his second throw. Like, right. I'm not afraid of this guy. He threw another pick. He fumbled at midfield after Peyton Bowen lit his ass up. So I'm not that frightened. Plus, all this to say, they lost a lot of skill production. And people are just like, no, Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers box checked. They're going to be fine. Like, I mean, if I was a Texas fan, I hope. Isaiah Bond's a good player. I know you guys would know that. He's not A.D. Mitchell. He's not Xavier Worthy. Like, I don't think he's that type of player. He's a good player, but you don't replace those guys that went to the NFL in the first round with Isaiah Bond and say, oh yeah, we're just going to pick this up where we left off. Like, I'm sorry. Like, reality is going to hit them in the face pretty quickly. And if it's not in Ann Arbor against a really good Michigan defense in the Big House, I mean, they got OU and Georgia back-to-back relatively early in conference play. Like, reality is going to sink in pretty quick for them, I think.
Right.
So we can make the assumption you don't see Texas making the SEC championship game this year.
I really don't. And, OU fan here. So yes, our schedule is really hard. It's like almost it's criminally unfair how hard it is. And it's also
welcome
even
to the SEC.
Yeah,
all of ours are that way.
Well, it's also even more unfair that they just used like between OU and Texas, like we're just going to go by your success rate over the last 10 years to, justify schedules. And it's like, oh, you mean the decade where Texas was just awful and we were going to the playoff? Oh, that's fair. Yeah, that's awesome. But okay, like we're OU, we like the challenge. But like their schedule, especially in the back half, is a little tricky. I mean, they're going to be playing a bunch of teams that want to play them, and want to beat them. I mean, A&M on the road, that's going to be tough. Arkansas is an old rival, and Arkansas has had random success against them in the handful of times they've played over the last 15 years. It's not a schedule to me that I hear that it's easy. It's easy relative to OU's. But when I look at it, I'm like, for a team that's replacing a lot of skill production and by far their best players on defense. I mean, they're Texas, they recruit well, so they should have some players ready. But if they do not replace the players they had last year, I mean, Texas flirted with 2 or 3 extra losses in addition to OU last year in conference play. That team last year loses 2 or 3 games with this current schedule. So I'm interested. But I mean, we should not be immune to Texas preseason hype only for it to just go away 4 or 5 weeks into the year.
Right. Well,
And did we talk about it last week, or was it the week before, where we talked about Texas's running game's going to be a little
I think it was last week.
Unlingered because they've lost RB1 and RB2.
Yeah.
So that if that means you got to lean on Quinn, and according to what Brady just told us, we may not have to really be too concerned. That's an interesting little take.
Yeah, but now with the hype, everyone in the SEC is going to want to blow the brakes off of.
Oh yeah, they're
So
gonna come
much
out
hype.
all gun
It's the
blazing.
First year
Sure.
in the conference, nobody wants to be like, "Oh yeah, come on in, you deserve to be here." That's not how the SEC is. That's just, we're not that way. We're gonna want to show you that you made a mistake coming. I mean, welcome. How's your mom and them? Hope they're well, but also.
And now give us
we
your
want
lunch
to
money.
harm you. And that's not just Alabama. Obviously, we have our own issues with Texas and needing to prove ourselves once again. But it's going to be the same for Oklahoma, though. Everyone's excited to have new competition within the conference. But I think it's one of those where the teams that are on the bottom half of the SEC, they don't want to be there. They don't want the new guys to beat them. They're really going to be gunning to prove that even the lowest in the SEC is better than the new guys. That's just how it is. So I'm going to be really interested to see when Texas travels, how much these teams come for them, because that's just the way it is. I mean, it's your induction into the SEC, and we're certainly not going to make it easy, I hope.
Yeah. That's actually something I was interested in asking you guys about, because one thing I've been talking about on Keyhole for the entire off season, when you're trying to dissect the same schedule you've seen, like the day it was released, and then like, okay, how do we map out a summer's worth of content over this? Well, one of the concepts I've kind of toyed around with in my head, and it makes a lot of sense to me as a diehard OU fan, is yes, we're going into a conference that's much harder, where even South Carolina's got NFL dudes. Like the South Carolina equivalent in the Big 12 probably doesn't have an NFL guy on their roster, with all due respect. So it's the competition is going to go up. However, the Big 12 angles itself around potentially beating OU or potentially beating Texas. And so what do I mean by that? Every program, when they got OU at home on their schedule, they know it doesn't matter if we've lost 4 games. It doesn't matter if we've lost all of our games. If we just play them close, the head coach, I'm going to get a pay raise. I'm going to get a contract extension. I might even get a better job from this. And all the players know that if we just do everything correct and have a little luck, I will be able to tell my grandkids that I almost beat OU or that I beat OU. That is the conference we are leaving, where OU will go to Lawrence against Kansas, albeit this isn't your dad's Kansas program. This, last year they were pretty damn good. But you go up against Kansas, and they clearly, after that game started, they clearly held back so much for the OU game and just threw out all this funky, weird stuff that either worked or didn't work. And it was just kind of like, what the hell am I watching? But it just goes to show you, like, that is their season. That was Oklahoma State's season. That is Iowa State's season, to just play on the same field as OU. And like, that sounds snooty and elitist, but when you're in a conference with a bunch of programs like that, that's just the fact of the matter. So I've always been interested in the idea of going into the SEC, and like, especially in the first year or two, like, other programs on the schedule are going to be like, oh, you thought you could handle this. It's going to be a challenge to play Tennessee, but then play Auburn, because we've played Tennessee before, but we didn't play Auburn on the road the next week. So that will be a challenge. But you could say the same thing for Tennessee and Auburn. Like, they've not had to play us as conference opponents, and therefore they're not familiar with us. But I've been interested in the idea of we're not playing programs that are putting their entire stock into beating us. We are just another team on their schedule, and they're going to go about it from the standpoint of our players are better than yours. OU in that situation, to me, has the potential to be more successful because they're not being put in a situation where, okay, now like this opponent is going to make you think because they're going to run all these funky motions and funky formations and what have you. Like, no, Tennessee is just going to try to line up and run their offense and beat you, and they could. But go out there and prove that you're better. I like OU in that environment way more than the funky circus that is the Big 12.
Yeah, and I think and you guys may disagree, but I think especially as a Bama fan, and
I know where you're going, Jesse.
it was so long, it was everybody wanted to beat us, whether they were in our conference or out of our conference. It was, we want Bama. And I had so many fans of other teams that were more excited about Alabama losing to anybody than they were about their team winning, which was crazy. But I think the SEC, what is really interesting, and after having worked with the Big Ten, it gave me some perspective, is in the SEC, yes, we're all like, yeah, SEC. But when it comes to playing each other, it is the biggest sibling rivalry. It doesn't matter who it is. I mean, maybe Vanderbilt, it's not as much, but like, we hate each other so much. Everybody. It doesn't have to be a historic, Alabama, Auburn, or Alabama, Tennessee rivalry. It's anybody. Florida comes in and we want to beat the brakes off of them. Missouri, whoever it is, all of a sudden you're encroaching on our territory? Absolutely not. That's like a little brother coming in. We're going to demolish you. And I think that's really interesting because you go to, other schools, you have the Big Ten, any other conference, ACC, whoever. And it's like, oh yeah, that's going to be a fine game. Okay. And then their rival comes in. It's wow, we're really big on the rivalry, but everyone to us in the SEC is a rival at some level. And I think that's what's really interesting. And I have no doubt we will fold OU or
especially since there's so much history there already. You can just, like you said, just fold that right in. Yeah.
Yep. Come on.
Listen, real quickly, I don't have any more questions of my own, but I want to go ahead and turn it over to Matt and Jesse if they had any others. But you talked about Sark. I would be remiss if I did not ask you about your opinion on Brent Venables. And what is your vibe from him? Do you think he's the guy that can get the job done there?
Yeah, with Brent, obviously there's like a soft spot there because of like where he was with the program in the 2000s when he was Bob's defensive coordinator. He was the co-DC when we won the national title in 2000 when I was 10 years old, but I'm not bitter. Obviously there's like a lot of, good feelings there. And the early thoughts that I had about Brent as a head coach, especially like, I think he was 49 when he took the head coaching position here. And, obviously he's north of 50 now. That's not exactly the norm for a first-time head coach. My thoughts are generally the same about him in that he's an adult. We've had kind of a bro running the program who doesn't really want to justify his expenditures to anybody. Like Lincoln Riley is just a millennial stereotype. If you've ever worked with millennial employees, I am one. I try not to be that, but I mean, I'm all about like chain of command and everything, but he's like, yeah, I want all this money and I don't want to tell you what I'm going to do with it. And I shouldn't have a boss.
Sounds like Lane Kiffin down at Ole Miss.
Exactly. And I mean, now Ole Miss lost the Coke money. I should say the Coca-Cola money. Like, let me say that. Which that could be potentially hazardous. But no, with Brent, my thoughts are generally the same. He was either going to be the next great head coach at OU, or he was going to set it up for the next guy. I'm a big believer in like you are just the God chosen one to be like the next Bud Wilkinson, the next Barry Switzer, and the next Bob Stoops, like guys that have statues on campus. Brent had a tall task to do. It wasn't just here, OU's got a really cool offense, just teach them how to tackle, because they have not done that for 10 years. It was more than that. It was having to reestablish the identity of the program, because as great as the offenses have been over the last 10 years and even well before that, OU has always been an innovative school on offense and defense, and they kind of lost their way. And a lot of their mojo got siphoned out as a result when you go into playoff games against Clemson, LSU, Georgia, Alabama with, extremely talented offenses with NFL guys all over the place, but you don't have anybody that can tackle. You don't have anybody with the size measurables necessary to go up against those programs. Brent had to fix all that. And it's not just defense. It trickles down over to the offense of like, you're just a finesse team. If we get a lead on you, there's nothing that your awesome offense can do against us. And that takes a long time. Some of that was an uphill battle because big time, especially defensive recruits, don't want to go play in the Big 12. So, it wasn't necessarily all OU's fault based on what they had been unable to accomplish. Some of it was just conference affiliation. That obviously got rectified. But, so far, Brent has knocked it out of the park. And it might sound silly because we went 6-7 in 2022, but if you just kind of look at that season, not even with a fine-tooth comb, like you could understand why. Brent was playing a bunch of guys that just had no business playing or starting at a place like OU. And a lot of that was under Lincoln Riley's watch. And he just said, yeah, 2022 is kind of a wash. He even had it in his contract for his first year that if he got to 7 wins, he would get a bonus. And obviously they didn't reach 7 wins, but that goes to show you that even he knew at the time of taking the job that, bro, winning more than 7 games with my system, the way I run a team with this talent is going to be a miracle. And it damn near was. They were in a handful of those games and they ended up losing them. So he goes into year 2 and wins 10 games, beats Texas, has really good chances to get back to the Big 12 title game, ultimately doesn't. But there's still kind of that lack of experience. There's a lack of development. And there's a lack of talent that he is still bringing in, and this is all coinciding with he's had top 10 classes ever since he stepped onto campus. And we just flipped a guy that was verbally committed to Texas, 5-star tackle by the name of Michael Fasusi. And then it's just an example of Brent is recruiting at a rate that Bob didn't even do. Like Bob really let his foot off the gas in terms of recruiting in the 2010s, and it shows. Brent is doing something here that potentially has never been done before from a recruiting talent standpoint. And it's just going to come down to if they can win 8 games this year. 8-4 is not something OU fans are excited for ever. But year 1 in the SEC with this schedule, with basically kind of a new offensive line and a brand new starter at quarterback, that will do so much for the program because it will show that, yeah, they belong. All they need is experience at some key positions, and they're bringing in talent. And if you go 8-4, like you're not going to see a huge drop off on the recruiting trail because at 8-4, you've probably beaten maybe LSU on the road or maybe Alabama at home or maybe Tennessee at home. Like you've had a big game success in that season. So with Brent, everything is trending in the right direction, but this year is so key. You cannot have a disaster because that could potentially erode away all the good feelings he's kind of been able to set up so far.
Right.
You mentioned recruiting quite a bit, and that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you about is we know, at least for historically, the SEC has really tapped into the state of Texas, right? Like we have tried to steal as much as we could. And there's a lot of great talent just in the SEC in those southeastern states. What do you think joining the SEC as a conference is going to do for Oklahoma's recruiting? Do you think it helps? Do you think it hurts? Because, now if someone wants to go to Oklahoma, it's like, well, you could also go to maybe another SEC school. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it no doubt helps. Because I know that Colin Cowherd clip, I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was like a clip from like a year and a half ago, like made the rounds again about him saying that, he's going to be the new Nebraska.
Because I saw that.
Yeah, they're changing conferences. They're going to a tougher conference. I mean, guys, Nebraska ran the triple option and then they suddenly didn't. Like that was their identity. OU was fortunate enough to transition from the wishbone, and then they basically made the air raid like popular with Bob Stoops. So they were able to like kind of shed their old identity and adapt to a changing time. Nebraska's not done that. Also, Nebraska got really far away from their recruiting ground, like being in the state of Texas, because Texas high school kids don't want to play football in November in Madison, Wisconsin, or Champaign, Illinois. Like, screw that. I want to play closer to home where it's warm. So Oklahoma, maybe not the most geographically southern state. There's always a funny debate, with Oklahomans of like, what are we? Are we Southern? Are we Midwestern? Are we Southwestern? Are we like a weird region unto ourselves with Texas? But the proximity to the South, like, it makes sense geographically to me. I think what it does is what A&M did by leaving the Big 12, they opened the floodgates for the SEC. And I mean, there are a handful of times where OU was in on a recruit that they would have otherwise got, but they didn't get. I mean, Josh Jacobs, his name comes to mind, Jace McClellan, like two backs that chose Alabama over Oklahoma. And Josh Jacobs being from Oklahoma made it even all the more weird. It's going to help. But at the same time, you're just going up against big time juggernaut programs for, like maybe like your mid-tier recruits. So it's going to be tougher, but I mean, Oklahoma has, like, they're not afraid to recruit. Now they just have a little bit more of a reason to say, hey, why don't we go into that weird high school in Mississippi and recruit this defensive lineman? Like, why can't we do that now? Like in the Big 12? Yeah, definitely not. But now we can, because people know who we are. And now we're playing in their conference. And so you can go into those living rooms and tell these parents that, your son is not going to be like far away from home playing football at the University of Oklahoma. So it's a big help. But again, you're just like the games being played on Saturday, you're going up against A&M, you're going up against Texas, you're going up against Alabama, you're going up against Florida and all the other Florida schools. Like, it's going to be a challenge, but it's a challenge that I think OU is prepared for. And it's a challenge that OU has met consistently, like throughout the program's history.
No, that's fair. And we're in a new recruiting era anyways, with NIL and with the transfer portal. Things are different regardless. My last question, then I'll let Matt jump in. Who do you think is a potential future rival for Oklahoma in the SEC, or who would you hope is your future rival?
Yeah,
other than Texas.
Yeah, of course, Texas. I hope it's not A&M, and I hope it's not Arkansas, and I hope it's not Missouri, because I mean, OU and Missouri go back to the Big 7, Big 8 days. We've played them a lot, but I mean, it's not as bad as Bedlam for Oklahoma State, but it's pretty damn bad. They're not on our level. And I know that they had a cute little season last year and that they're really excited about this year, but like, daddy's home, so I'm not afraid of them. Arkansas does nothing for me. Much respect to them. Like, OU's played Arkansas a handful of times in its history. But no, thank you. I could see, OU fans don't really have a good taste in their mouth as it concerns LSU, and it has nothing to do with the Peach Bowl against Joe Burrow, because OU fans had, like, we knew, like, we have no chance in this game. This is just we're just happy to be here. But the 04 Sugar Bowl against LSU, when they had Saban and OU played in the national title against them, that is a nightmare for like the message boards. Anytime that game comes up, OU fans that went there have just awful experiences with LSU fans. So it's going to be interesting when OU goes to Death Valley this year, how many OU fans go, A, and B, what their experiences are like. But that's a close enough proximity school. Like, you can drive from Norman to Baton Rouge in a day and get there and have a good time. I could see that. If it were up to me, I mean, even without the decade that Alabama had, because yeah, I'm sure everybody would love to be Alabama's rival, because like, what does that mean about you? But I think from a historical standpoint, Alabama just makes a lot of sense. These are two fan bases that when we've played each other, it's always cordial. Like, it kind of gives me the impression that this could be like OU Nebraska, where both teams want to beat the hell out of each other, but both fan bases kind of enjoy each other's company. So hopefully that would be the case. And we get Alabama in the first 2 years of this kind of schedule experience with the SEC. So I'm already trying to look forward to potentially going down to Tuscaloosa for the first time next year. I'm going to Auburn this year, so I'll get to explore a little bit of Alabama, hopefully in the first 2 years of the SEC.
Nice. Well, we certainly enjoy the same color palette, but before you go to Tuscaloosa, you make sure you reach out. We'll we'll send you on the right path
Of
and
course.
know where that's terrible, and hopefully our fans behave themselves.
By the way, Brady, you made Matt's entire week with that comment about Missouri, by the way. So
There is no limit to the amount of loathing I have for everything that's in Missouri. The entire state could fall into the ocean. I'd be fine with it.
I mean, they've got Luther Burden, and he's really good. I mean, we beat the living hell out of them when they had Jeremy Maclin and Chase Daniel and like a legitimate NFL offense. It's like, okay, cool. You've got a cool receiver. That's never happened before, and we've never played you when you've had one. So this is a brand new experience for us. But they've had some success over us in terms of like they signed Williams Winery. I think he was like the best recruit last year, defensive lineman out of St. Louis, because they see their window and they know it's going to close very suddenly. And they got Williams Winery over us. Credit to them. And then they were able to steal Caden Green from us, who was a player on our roster going into bowl season, true freshman out of the same high school in St. Louis, who just suddenly was like, "Yeah, I'm going to go to Missouri now." It's like, okay. We started him at guard. Missouri told him that we'll put you at tackle, and they tried him at tackle during spring ball. And then I think Missouri's coaching staff said, OU's offensive line coach, Bill Bedenbaugh, who's widely regarded as one of the best offensive line coaches in college football, I think he knew what he was talking about, because if you caught Missouri's depth chart, Caden Green is starting at guard. So, yeah, sorry, but at least you're closer to home.
Matt, did you have any other questions for Brady?
Yeah, I just had a couple quick ones. Number one, who's your favorite Sooner? And no fair saying Adrian Peterson.
I can't say Adrian Peterson.
No, I'm kidding. You could say Adrian Peterson, but you got to give me at least a couple reasons why.
Okay, well, I was gonna say, AD was a freshman when I was 14, so that age where they are like Greek god heroes to you when you're watching college football. Adrian Peterson was the best player in America. Yeah. He's probably because, like I said, I used to cover the Thunder, so I've seen, I've interviewed LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, like Kevin Durant, and they're just tall humans, and I know that they're amazing at their job and people love them, but it just was work to me. And I've seen a handful of OU players working, in Oklahoma City and Norman in the media sphere. But Adrian Peterson, I've never met, and I kind of want it that way because I just want that childhood mystique to remain with me. I feel like if I ever did meet him, I would be absolutely starstruck of like, oh my God, it's him. So, I mean, whether it be Adrian Peterson, Matt, I'll give you a little shout out. Josh Heupel. He was our guy. I wore number 14 growing up playing football because of Josh Heupel, not because of Sam Bradford, but because of Josh Heupel. I'm excited for him to come back. He's kind of said that he has, there's some weird mixed feelings there when it concerns OU. It's mainly because of Bob. I don't think Josh has anything bad to say about the program. It's going to be really fun to see Josh come back to Owen Field and Memorial Stadium. So hopefully, I don't know. I don't think OU's going to do anything for him, but I mean, rest assured, there's going to be like a camera shot on the big screen of Josh Heupel on the sideline, and then the whole stadium's going to like cheer. And so hopefully he takes that to heart, because we do love him and appreciate him. So AD, Josh Heupel, those are probably like, I guess I only have two guys on my Mount Rushmore, because once I got to college and I started being the same age as them, and then as I got older and I got older than them, it's like
goes away.
Yeah, it's like I have some favorite players, but I'm not like going to argue with my friends over like, this guy's better than that guy. It's like, if you think they're better, fine. Like, OU's going to kick their ass, and then we'll let them do the talking. But it's probably
I think the three of us would probably have similar ideas. Like for me, it'd be Peyton Manning. For Wes, it would probably be, I don't know, some Georgia fan that won some Heisman or something. I don't know. We're not getting into it. We don't need to bring up the Heisman because, well, it's a useless piece of hardware. Anyway, I hate the Heisman. Stupid and dumb, and I hate it. Anyway, my other question.
I didn't know. Never knew that.
Wes, be quiet. I'm trying to conduct an interview. Please be professional, for God's sake. My other question is you pick the SEC championship game. No fair picking Oklahoma. Pretend they don't exist. Pick the SEC championship game, and then tell us who you think is going to win the national championship this year.
So this is going
No
to be weird.
pressure.
I'll pick the national champion. I can't believe I'm going to say this because I don't think Ryan Day is awesome. I think Ohio State will. And also, I don't think Will Howard was a jag at Kansas State for 3 years. Like we've known about this guy for a long time. Like he's got a nice little skill set, but he is by no means like a clear-cut upgrade to Kyle McCord, and people just acting like, oh, he changed jerseys and now he's awesome. It's the I don't think the media has correctly adjusted to the transfer portal area or the era, excuse me. Because players that were once never thought of in a preseason media guide, like when you're trying to project teams, like they switch teams and all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, now they're good. It's like, that doesn't make any sense to me, but I think they have so much talent, so much overwhelming talent. They clearly got a somewhat of an easier road than all of us SEC schools. I can see them really like taking this one opportunity, this little window of hope after Jim Harbaugh leaves Michigan and Michigan's kind of like a shell of their former self. I just see them kind of as the team, mainly because, like I mentioned, Oregon had the worst fans I've ever like been around. Screw Oregon. I love me some Dylan Gabriel, and I will weirdly kind of hope he does well, but I don't want Oregon to do well anyway. I have questions about Dan Lanning as a coach because he has lost every meaningful big game that he's coached, and it's a short sample size, but Brent Venables gets crucified for some negative factors in his short window of time as OU's head coach. So I'm going to do the same thing with Dan Lanning. I think the SEC is just going to destroy itself.
Because it's kind of what we do. we make a habit out of that.
Really, is it going to be a good thing to make the SEC title game?
No.
Yeah, and you don't have to win it,
especially now.
Yeah, like
it's been my idea that we need to just get rid of conference championships altogether. You proclaim a regular season champion, and then we move into the playoffs.
Except for they've made that as one of the factors for the first round bye. So that's the only
here nor there.
It's a give and take, right?
So the loser of the SEC title game should just say we're done. Like we're not gonna. We're just we had an opportunity to do something.
Politely decline.
We bet the house and we came up short. So no, thank you.
Right.
I mean, I think one of the easy answers is going to be Georgia. And I know Georgia and Bama play each other.
Finally. Oh, sorry. That was out loud.
We play each other.
I'm not bitter
already.
No, please come off it. Georgia never has to play a hard road game ever. Don't even start with me, Wes.
Can't say that this year.
No,
that's something I've kind of like also harped on when it concerns Alabama is when was the last time Alabama played? I guess Baton Rouge is technically west of the Mississippi River, but it is the Mississippi River. When was the last time Alabama played a road game, a true road game west of the Mississippi in November?
They don't.
Yeah, and like they come to Norman, and one thing you guys might figure out if you've never been to Oklahoma, I guess A&M would be a good if you guys have played them that late.
That game's usually in October, isn't it?
Yeah, it's usually an October game.
Yeah.
One thing you guys will figure out if you've never been to Oklahoma, Oklahoma gets really cold. It's windy here. It's humid here, and it
no trees. There's nothing to stop the wind.
It's an icy, frigid hellscape. So Alabama could potentially be playing in an environment that they are just not used to, and that could be like a weird little advantage that we might find ourselves having. So I don't know, but okay. Original question: SEC title game. Can Georgia and Bama both make it again? Like
absolutely could.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna say them because I've got questions about Kalen DeBoer. Not because I question him as a coach, but because I question you don't just replace the greatest coach of all time. And it's okay. Like doesn't matter. Like everyone look away. Like everything's gonna be fine. Like I question that. But there's no doubt they have Alabama and Georgia. I think by far have the best talent. At least from a starting position in the SEC. And I think that they'll just both ride that out until proven otherwise.
Yeah.
I hope you're right.
I hope you're wrong, but
well, everybody else has too many questions. Like, I mean, OU's got a lot of questions. Texas has questions I brought up. Missouri is going to have a target on its back, which is something they're not accustomed to ever. And so teams that they think might be easy to play will suddenly not be, because they're like, oh no, you guys were good last year. It's our turn to kick your ass now.
You haven't mentioned Ole Miss yet, and just because you're coming from outside the conference, I'm interested to hear your take on them, because they could be pretty sneaky this year with Lane Kiffin. They've got a returning quarterback who did well last year. They got to get the defense going, but they had their first 10-win season.
Paper Tiger.
Oh,
okay.
I know.
Oh,
I know why.
Shots fired.
I know why people think highly of them, because like I mentioned earlier, I don't think the media has properly adjusted to the transfer portal era,
which they use heavily.
Yeah, because like all this is like, as journalists, whenever you have a take, for the most part, you need to have like some evidence to back it up. You need to cite your sources. And so for a lot of media personalities, the transfer portal has become the source. Like, this is why I think X will happen, because they brought in all these guys. This isn't fantasy sports. You don't just copy paste somebody's like production at another school and just add it to whatever they're inheriting at the new school. Like, so many factors are in successful football teams, where it's chemistry, it's cohesion. It's like, how does this person play well against, like, next to this other guy that he wasn't teammates with last year? And so when you rely so heavily on so much turnover, I don't get it. But the other factor is, like you mentioned, they've got a returning starter in Jackson Dart, who's coming into his fourth year as a starting quarterback. I mean, going back to USC when he started a handful of games as a freshman. My thing with Jackson Dart is, whatever you think about Dylan Gabriel, that's Jackson Dart on a very good day. I think Dylan Gabriel is way more consistent of a quarterback than Jackson Dart. And my personal opinion, when I look at Ole Miss's schedule last year and I hear that, they're so good, and there was some controversy with OU because it came down to Missouri, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma for the last entrance into the New Year's Six Bowl. And of course, OU fans are like, we beat Texas, and the two teams we lost to were ranked, and one of them played in the conference title game. So we didn't get upset by like crap teams. We lost to some pretty good teams. Then you look at Ole Miss's schedule and you see that they beat all the average to good, like average teams on their schedule. But the two times they played teams with a pulse, they got annihilated. And so that is not a pedigree for success for me. And I don't know if Lane Kiffin is the guy to run a locker room that has a bunch of new faces, because if Ole Miss loses a game or two early, like, does that thing snowball? Because all those guys are like, I'm just NFL. I've just got the tunnel vision of the NFL now. What happens if you lose a game or two, get tripped up early with that type of locker room? So I've got a lot of questions about them. Like, OU's got them on the road. I'm happy that it's an 11 a.m. kickoff and not a night game. The SEC gave us a little bit of a pat on the back there. But it's one of the games that I'm more afraid of like 5 or 6 other games on the schedule than that one. It's going to be a challenge, but I don't know. I don't take them seriously yet.
Right. Well, season's almost here, and I'm excited to see how it all shakes out. But Brady, it's been an honor to have you on the show here. Could you let all the viewers, listeners know where they can find you out there on the social medias?
Yeah, you can send all your hate mail to my Twitter account. It's at Brady Does Sports. Keyhole Pod on Twitter is the Twitter account. If you want to see whenever we're putting out podcasts, keyholepod.com is where all of our free content is. Patreon.com/throughthekeyhole. But we're going to do live YouTube shows this year. We do a post-game pod. We do preview pods with journalists or just fans that cover or follow the OU's opponent that week. But we have a lot of fun with it, and we like to have on new friends, especially since we're in a conference of a bunch of new friends in the SEC. So yeah, that's where you can find all of our stuff.
Awesome. Well, look forward to hearing and seeing more, and I look forward to the season getting started. Thanks, Brady, for coming on.
Thank you for not bringing up the Rose Bowl. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brady.
Anytime.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, I really enjoyed that. Shots fired all around. It was just so much good stuff.
Brady's the captain of hot takes. Is official. PNP podcast role. He is the captain of hot takes.
Oh yeah, so good, so good. Really looking forward to seeing how Oklahoma adjusts and how Texas adjusts, and well, I guess in turn how we adjust to them too, in a way. So we'll see how that all goes. But yeah, it was great to have Brady on the show, and we're excited to see how things go with Oklahoma. Let's go ahead and get out of here at the end of this episode. If you guys would like to email us, please do so at pigskinsandpageantry@gmail.com. We are at Pigskins and Pageantry on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. On X, we are at PPSEC Podcast. Knew Matt was going to say that. We are available for download on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, TuneIn Radio, and most podcasting apps for iPhone, Android, and other operating systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment, subscribe, and review. We'd love 5 stars there to increase visibility and all that good stuff. Yeah, week 1 is here, and I am thrilled. So until next time, this is Wes. Go Dogs.
It is the start of a new era, y'all, whether we want it or not, but we can do this and new things can be good. Roll Tide.
Oh God. Texas guy got to wear a cool hat. I get to wear a cool hat. So saddle them up, boys. It's football time in Tennessee. Woo! Go Vols!